My kind request to the US Strategic Command to direct your US Strategic Command to direct the US intelligence community through the US new proposed US financial force and the US digital force with regard to this conversion of the Sri Lankan rupee into US dollars, because then in international foreign exchange markets, Sri Lanka and the international interbank markets in New York, London, Tokyo, and European and Singapore, Australian markets, Sri Lanka can buy giving Sri Lankan rupees the US dollar, and then proceed and integrate the Sri Lanka rupee based monetary system policy of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, which had been formed by the created by the under the advice of the US citizen Mr. John Exter on a building built by the German engineering firms in Colombo 1. So because this way we can integrate the Sri Lankan rupee based monetary system into the international internationally reputed financial monetary system of US dollar, euro, Great Britain pound, Swiss franc, Japanese yen, New Zealand dollar, Aussie dollar, etc. Otherwise, US Sri Lankan rupee would just become a rogue rupee this way. That is why, in order to do this in a civilized way, I kindly request the US Strategic Command to influence the US through the US intelligence commands and the US intelligence community to since the US Congress is on one side, US executive president and the cabinet is on one side, and the US judiciary and the court system is one side. To take this forward, US Strategic Command, please do this in order to make sure that the Sri Lankan rupee willingly is exchanged at the international foreign exchange markets, and also over the in international banks and interbank international interbank money markets like London prominently and New York, Washington, so that we can make payments. One way we can link our rupee based monetary system to the reputed Western nations monetary system, because it's a failure of the US American citizen John Exter, Mr. late John Exter's vision that resulted in situation, because he did not put forward a method to integrate the central banks sponsored by the US Federal Reserve Bank or the Federal Reserve System in countries like Sri Lanka and Asia to the US monetary system. He rather proposed pegging the US dollar that time, pegging the Sri Lanka rupee to the US dollar, right? And then it failed, and then we according to US Federal Bank and advice, we had to peg it to a multi-basket currency basket. That also failed. That is a major failure of the US economist and the US bankers, central bankers, for giving wrong advice, right? They could have actually at the time created the US sponsored central bank in Sri Lanka. They could have actually make it fully convertible to US dollar in 1950s. This is the reason why the US economic advisors, US central bankers advisors, for personal gain only, not supporting the US economy or the US American people, resulted in this crisis today throughout the world through the pandemic even. That is why I kindly request now the US Strategic Command to influence the US Intelligence Command to do this, since other branches of the government of the state, according to the US Constitution, the Congress and the law, federal courts and the executive, the president and the cabinet are inactive, and they are not doing anything here, since they cannot also, under the doctrine of separation of powers of the US Constitution. It's the US Strategic Command who has to do it by making Sri Lankan rupee integrated into the US dollar, and not only Sri Lanka, all Indo-Pacific region and other countries where US supported right throughout to all through the USAID and the Millennium Challenge Corporation, to integrate the central banking system by making their currencies also similar to Sri Lankan currencies, fully convertible to the US dollar. Okay, then especially because there's a news report today on the lankacnews.com that like a oil tanker is waiting at the Colombo harbour for days, because this oil tanker, Sri Lanka or Sipetco has to pay US dollars 45 million, and we know that Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe exposed in the parliament the government financial secret details by saying that Ceylon Petroleum Corporation or Sipetco has to pay US dollars 3 billion liabilities, right? And the government reserves are not accounted integratedly to that with the commercial bank foreign reserves. So the situation, this foreign oil tanker had requested, they have anchored outside the Colombo port and requesting first to send the money to their bank account, and after that only the oil tanker would enter the Colombo port. Because they are in the international water, and otherwise if they enter the Sri Lankan coastal sea or the harbour, well, we can prevent them from leaving. So then they will have no option but to load the oil to the terminal, pipelines there, and then once we collect, even if we don't pay, they have to go. But then they are not entering the port here and demanding the payment be transferred to the their bank accounts, US dollars 45 million. They have come there on the 5th of July, and actually they want the previous payments, it seems, to be settled, and also the current payments in order to do this oil mid sea transfer through the oil transfer pipes on the Sri Lanka seas, where they combine the oil tanks to the through the pipes to this pipe Sri Lanka oil grid network on the sea terminal, and it goes underneath Colombo port, and then the joins with go to the oil storage tanks in Colonnava. So this is actually to reduce the transport cost overland to physical handling. So actually, whatever the situation now, under these circumstances, I kindly request the US command, strategic command, to influence the intelligence officials, and then make Sri Lankan rupee fully convertible in international forex and interbank money markets.